Well, that's exactly what Tumi and I have been talking about the entire morning, the intensifying conflict over in Ukraine. Now, it might be difficult to appreciate the full extent of its impact, not only on the people of Ukraine and Europe as well, but also on us here in South Africa. But you're probably asking the question, well, how could this possibly affect us economically? Well, let's try and find out from Azar Jammine. He joins us this morning, of course, the director and chief economist at Econometrix, joining us. Azar, good evening, or good morning, I'm sorry, to you. Good to have you with us on the show. We've been looking at the markets throughout this morning. We'll look at them after our discussion. I'm already seeing the rand tanking against the US dollar. I imagine this is one of the cons of the fight between the Ukraine and Russia.
Very much so. If you look a little more deeply, you would see that the Russian ruble has fallen by more than 30% this morning. And that's precisely because the EU Central Bank has been taking steps to basically freeze all the assets of the Russian Central Bank, which means that Russia will find it almost impossible to borrow money on international markets from now on. And that, coupled with the likelihood of the Europeans introducing a ban on any SWIFT dealings with Russian companies, that's the international transfer mechanism, also means that together with the ban on air flights over Europe for any Russian aircraft, it means that Russia is really getting isolated. And obviously, this will have detrimental effects on the Russian economy. Its inflation rate is going to surge. And of course, the rand has fallen very sharply. Well, I'd say nowhere near as much as the ruble, but all emerging markets tend to suffer in tandem at times like these, and the rand has taken a knock.
What is this? How do we read into how South Africa can try and mitigate any of the damage? Is there anything that we can do from an economic perspective, or is it a case of strap in kids, it's going to get bumpy?
I think it's going to get bumpy, but in the short term, ironically, South Africa might benefit, relatively speaking, more than many other countries. And that is because a lot of the minerals that Russia exports are precisely the same ones that South Africa exports. In particular, we're thinking here of platinum group metals. As a result, we are likely to see a rise in the prices of some of these metals and minerals. We've already seen, for example, over the weekend, the aluminium price, which we don't produce, but the price of aluminium has gone to record levels because of fears of a shortage. And there are many other minerals that we supply, including coal, whose prices may very well rise in the short term. The problem is, of course, that is negative for global economic growth from a longer-term point of view, and one could well see a reversal in that rising trend of commodity prices in due course, in which case we cannot really, as the Minister of Finance quite rightly said in his budget speech, rely on that windfall of higher commodity prices to be sustained indefinitely.
One of the aspects that's also going to hurt all of us very, very severely on Wednesday is the increase in the fuel price. This latest fuel price increase, though, not being directly linked to the invasion itself, but there was talk of the invasion. Now that it's happened, how bad do you think the oil price and the fuel price is going to get for us if you had to look into the Azar Jammine crystal ball?
I think that there is indeed a chance of oil prices screaming upwards. If the ban on these payment systems and it means an inability of countries to import Russian crude oil, they're going to have to get that crude oil from elsewhere. And that could cause the price of oil to rise quite a lot further. I've seen some estimates saying it could go to somewhere between $120 and $140 a barrel, in which case, you know, you could end up with fuel prices domestically well up into the upper 20s per barrel, if not 30 rand per barrel. And that's, of course, South Africa is not the only country in the world that's going to be suffering in that way. Most countries in the world will suffer as a consequence of that. And that's what I mean. That in itself could bring about a recession in the world economy in due course and result in a decline in the demand for all sorts of other minerals, which lead to a downturn in the South African economy as well. But in the short term, our mineral exports exceed by far the amount that we have to pay to import oil. And so there's a net benefit for the South African economy.
Would you believe there's a benefit here in there somewhere at least? Azar Jammine, thank you so much, as always, for joining us this morning. Director and Chief Economist at Econometrix. As well, let's not forget that as the oil price and fuel price goes up, so does the cost of living, so does the cost of food as well. So it does have that knock-on effect. A reminder that the fuel price is jumping up significantly this coming Wednesday.